going to do a quick tour of my basement here, show off some of the parts of my woodworking shop and model making equipment and tools. This is a collection of stuff I've had over the years hanging up here. This is a steering wheel off the MGTD. Right below that is a radio control sailboat called the Fairwind. I know Dick Boucher has one of these. I've modified it a little bit by putting wooden decks on it, but kind of fun. This room in here, the house was originally a summer camp, and this was the original house, this foundation. And right now it's my firewood storage area. And over here I have a bin full of wood scraps and some other wood scraps standing up here. So why would I want to show this to some ship modelers? Well, over here I have a barrel that I move over in front of the wood pile. And it has a board and turntable. Kind of handy thing to put over in front of the wood here and take my rattle cans and spray paint things. And the overspray then ends up on the wood pile, and eventually that ends up in the wood stove, so it goes away. So that works out pretty nicely for painting things. Then before we bought the house, somebody had added on to it this space, and this space is bigger than the original house. When I redid the kitchen cabinets upstairs, I took some of the old ones down here and used them for storage. Got a steering wheel off the tractor. I restored John Deere tractor. And my memory isn't that great, so I've got labels on everything. Belt sander and belts and stuff like that. Collection of screws. Here's my rattle can collection and paint cans and solvents and stuff like that. And then over on this bench, which was the kitchen sink upstairs at one time, I have my miniature table saw and a small electric Piper Cub. A lot of neat tools hanging up here. This tool is kind of interesting. This is actually a blacksmith wrought pull knife, draw knife, which instead of being machine made, it's kind of interesting. We have a light table so that I can put pieces of paper on there and trace things. It's a buffing wheel for polishing out metal parts. Then over next to that I have a really nice miniature drill. It's by Dumore. They were very high speed, which is really terrific for these small bits. They were throwing this out at my son's workplace. They used it for drilling circuit boards at one point, and they didn't need it anymore. So I was happy to get a hold of that. And then we have a little cut-off saw. This is the kit Dapper Tom that I'm working on, Baltimore Clipper. The plans for the Clipper rigging are here. That's what I'm working on now. Bunch of parts bins and stuff. This is kind of neat. This is an old Table Talk pie crate that I use for storing stuff. All my sandpaper and stuff in it. And here's the Baltimore Clipper. These are kind of neat. I get these at Michael's Craft Supply. And they're nice because you can see through as to what's in them. Storing parts. And they do stack. So if you wanted to put a dowel through the middle of them, you could make a storage space for them. But I find them very handy for holding small parts. This wooden jaw that I put on here is really handy. I've got right now a block clamped in it. and then that block, the line off of it is being held here by a clothespin. This piece of wood I just move in and out so that I can draw things tight. And up on top I got a couple of pins where I can mount a dead eye. Makes it easy to tie off the dead eyes. And that's pretty much the ship model area. Over here I have my compressor. When I ran electricity out to my garage, I ran a 3-inch PVC pipe, and it contains not only the electrical lines but an air hose, so I have compressed air out in the garage without the noise of the compressor running. Over here we have a little South Bend lathe. It's got a 5-inch swing on it. One of my tooling engineers had this in his basement from when he had a machine shop, and he wanted to put in a bar for socializing, and this was in his way, so I asked him what he wanted for it. He said, "Give me the price of the new motor in it." I said, "What's that?" He says, $200. So my son and I were over with a truck that afternoon, and we picked it up, took it apart, brought it home. It's handy for all kinds of things. Right now I'm using it to taper spars. Take a block of sandpaper to it while it's spinning. I have a nice Delta drill press and a Craftsman table saw with improved rip guide and miter guides. Over in this side, got the sanding machine, little bench grinder. This I bought off of Robin Neal when he was downsizing. It's really a great tool. It's a spindle sander and a reciprocating belt sander. So that's pretty handy. A little bandsaw. Mostly I use that for cutting up pieces of firewood to make kindling. This is a handy little Craftsman jigsaw. And my son bought these clamps that go in here, and they replace the pins on the regular jigsaw blades with a clamp that allows you to put these finer jeweler saw blades in, and you really get a nice fine cut with it. Over in here I have a get a light on here. This is a bead blaster where I can clean metal parts. The ceramic beads are nice because they don't leave as heavy a footprint as the sandblaster I have out in the garage. Sandblaster in the garage with sand in it is good for taking rust off of steel parts. This one is really nice for cleaning up carburetor die castings and that sort of thing, where you don't want to beat them up quite as much as the sand. My first addition I put on goes out through here, add it onto the cellar, and in here I have a drawing board, which is nice to have. I started off in designing lighting equipment for a living, and on the drawing board had a much larger drafting machine than this. This I picked up on eBay. It's really a handy little gadget. And I'm looking at a model I made from Midwest Products called the Lobster Yacht, making maybe some modifications, lengthening the hull a little bit. So that'll be kind of a fun project. But I ended up on CAD, 2D, and then 3D CAD systems in my professional life, and it's kind of fun to go back to the hand drafting again. I find it rather pleasing. Drafting tools. And finally, the last addition I did to the house. This doorway was a bulkhead so that you could go up a set of stairs and go outside, bring stuff in and out of the basement. So you got to kind of hunker down to get under it into the addition. I made the basement lower down than this level so that we'd have more headroom. And you can see this is my man cave. Gets a little cool in the winter time, so we have a electric stove heater. Got a nice setup with a computer and desk. All the ship model guys are familiar with my model of the Bluenose by now, so we don't have to go into that. This was my first restoration. This was a 1946 Aranca Champ. And when the guys I sold it to had to do some restoration to it, they sent me the fabric panel out of it, which I have framed here. My wife's name is Jane, obviously. And then hanging up above is a propeller by Sensenich. Would have been the kind of propeller that would have come on the Aranca Champ out of the factory. This is a factory reject, and they sell them for display only. And over here I got a half hull that I did from a powerboat. This is a showcase built in here with a lot of the awards that my MGTD has taken over the years, different car shows. It's a VW tractor that I model of what I actually restored the full size. These are kind of cool. These are copper nails out of the U.S. Constitution. Old Ironsides. They took those out during the restoration. And finally over here on this wall, these are posters that were part of the British Invasion car show in 2019, and they featured my MGTD on them, so I thought that was nice to make up a frame with the different pieces that had my car on it. Over here is an illustration of MGTD, same color combination as mine. These are neat. They were made by a fella who calls himself Sports Car Art up in Vermont, Dave Townsend. And they're almost like a little x-ray of the car, so you can actually see inside the mechanics. And he just finished recently this one of Austin Healey 100 with the same look inside feature to it. So those are kind of nice to have. And the cues for the central feature to my man cave, which is a very nice pool table. For some reason in this camera it looks blue, but it's actually green. Anyhow, that's the quick tour.